The moment she told me she'd scheduled time between me and her lover, was the moment I stopped being blind and started becoming a man again. Hey folks, thanks for taking the time to read this. What I'm about to share isn't easy, but it's real. It's a story that's been sitting heavy on my chest, and lately I just feel the need to let it out. So here it goes. Back in 1973, Johnny Taylor sang a song that I used to think was just a catchy tune. But now it feels like the man reached into my life and told my story before it even happened. One line hits me harder than anything. When your little girl makes you mad and you get an attitude and pack your bags, 5 little children that you're leaving behind. Son, you're gonna pay some alimony or do some time. Then that hook, it's cheaper to keep her. Man, he wasn't lying. He was painfully right. My name's Rick. I run my own small business, been doing it for years. My wife, Lisa, never worked. Not once since we got married. So the second I stepped into a lawyer's office, I already knew what I was up against. Alimony? No question. We've got 2 daughters, Kayla's 13 and Maddie just turned 11, and they are my world. If I walked, there'd be child support, obviously, but worse? I'd barely get to see them. And if Lisa decided to play hardball, and she could demand half my business as part of the settlement. That would leave me scraping by on a third of what I actually make. I remember sitting there in that office, listening to the lawyer break it all down, and walking out feeling like the weight of the world was crushing me. And Lisa? She was always 2 steps ahead. I'll never forget the way she said it, so matter-of-fact, sitting there like she was discussing the weather. I've been seeing him for about 8 months and honestly, it hasn't even hurt us, she said. He's a great lover. Not better than you, not bigger, just different. I remember standing there, blinking in disbelief as she calmly explained her twisted version of reality. If I had to choose between you 2, I'm not sure I could. But you might want to think long and hard before making any rash decisions, she said, practically daring me to do something. Because if you go see a lawyer, Rick, your life will be a living nightmare. I'll make sure of it. I looked at her, really looked, and I didn't recognize the woman in front of me. This wasn't Lisa, the woman I'd loved and trusted for the past 14 years. This wasn't the woman who knew me better than anyone else in the world. This was someone else entirely. Cold, calculating, detached. At least now I won't have to sneak around, she added, like it was some gift to me. You'll still get most of my time and affection, but I'm not going to neglect Jim either. He has needs too. I'll work out a schedule. That was it. I didn't need to hear another word. I stood up and walked straight out the door. She followed me, of course, yelling the whole way down the front steps. But the second she spotted Mrs. Reeves, our sweet neighbor from 2 doors down, she went quiet. I gave Mrs. Reeves a polite smile, nodded, and kept walking to my truck. Lisa turned back into the house, hissing through her teeth, "Get your butt in here now." I stayed gone for 2 days. When I finally came back, I only did it for my girls. They ran up and threw their arms around me, and for a while I just sat there holding them tight, pretending life was normal. They were growing so fast and I didn't want to miss a minute more than I already had. That night, Lisa brought me a beer after they were asleep. I didn't even touch it. Just set it on the table, knowing full well I'd never drink anything she handed me again. "I'm glad you came to your senses," she said, that smug smile curling on her face. "I knew you would. Things can just go back to how they were. No one needs to know anything. The only change will be that once a week I'll go out on a date and I'll be home late. But I'll come home. We can't risk the girls noticing." She leaned back on the couch, pleased with herself. That's when I gave the speech I'd been rehearsing in my head for 2 straight days. Whoever said I came to my senses? So I finally laid it all out for her. I stood there, heart pounding, and told Lisa exactly how things were going to go. "I'll stick around," I said, "for the next 4 years and 8 months. Long enough to see Kayla turn 18. After that, I'm gone." Maddie would be just past 16 by then, and I figured she'd be strong enough to handle it. Maybe she'd even want to live with me. Either way, once that clock ran out, I was out the door. I paused for a moment, let it sink in, then continued before she could open her mouth. "As of right now, that part of our marriage? It's done. If you walked out tomorrow, I still wouldn't share a bed with you. That's over. For good. I don't make a habit of being with a woman who's also sleeping with another man." I watched her face stiffen. "You'd better find a job, or maybe that boyfriend of yours can help cover your expenses. The girls will have everything they need, but outside of necessities for them, not another dime will come from our joint account. You're on your own now." That one hit hard. Lisa had never met a sale she didn't like. Her closet was packed with clothes, half of which I never even saw her wear. She loved the high life, and I had funded every bit of it. Not anymore. But I wasn't done hurting. I'd seen everything. First, there were the nudes, pictures she sent him. Then came a 10-minute video, just her and a toy he'd mailed her. She seemed enthusiastic to say the least. And he'd sent his own photos too, proudly showing off. There was even a video of him, talking trash, laying out the next session they were planning together. He didn't hold back. Eventually, that video's going to hit the internet. Probably sooner rather than later. At least she hadn't lied about him being different. Truth be told, he wasn't. Physically, we were about the same. That stung in a different way. She didn't even upgrade, just swapped me out for some run-of-the-mill guy. And the kicker? He was a county employee. Worked in permits, of all things. That's who she chose to risk it all for? As soon as the girls got on the school bus, she and I had one last talk. Or at least I did. You know what the real difference between us is? I asked her. Lately, all your energy has gone into nonsense, things that don't matter. You ought to start thinking with your head for once. Especially when it comes to our daughters. Then, as I was walking out, I turned back just long enough to say one last thing. Oh, and one more thing, I had the house wired. Audio and video. If you ever bring him here, that footage will be online in under an hour. I don't care about consequences anymore. She was still stammering for a response when I walked out the door and didn't look back. That fantasy life she'd built in her head? It was collapsing under the weight of cold, hard truth. I knew her well enough to know once she made up her mind, she rarely changed it. She thought she could control this. She thought she could control me. Later that day, I checked in on her using the remote access I'd set up. She was at the computer, frantically typing away. And then she realized I'd locked her out. I watched her throw her head back and scream, "You pig!" Then she launched into a string of curse words I didn't even know she had in her vocabulary. Honestly, I was kind of impressed. So, I figured, why not have a little fun? I gave her a call. She answered, but before she could say anything, I spoke first, voice drenched in sarcasm. "Hi, honey. Having a nice day?" The silence was thick. "See, you having the option to see other people while I'm just sitting here like a fool? Yeah, that's not gonna work for me." I kept going real calm. "Since you've declared our marriage open now, I'm going to explore my options too. There's this sales rep. She drops by once a month, very sweet, very fit. I think I might ask her out. Just putting that out there. I've been thinking about asking someone to lunch next week. Just a simple sit-down, nothing crazy, just me and someone I used to know talking face-to-face. I figure I'll lay it all out there, let her know where things stand in my life, and see if she's interested in getting to know each other again, now that the dust is finally settling. I've been right here, fully available for 16 years, I told Lisa. But that wasn't enough for you, was it? She looked thrown off by that, almost offended. Why would you even need someone else? She asked. I'm right here. I shook my head slowly. Because being physically present and being there, emotionally, mentally, that's not the same thing. The woman I was considering asking out, her name's June. She's no stranger. A military vet, highly trained in self-defense, black belts in more than one discipline. At one point, she even served on the pistol team sponsored by our local law enforcement, and she had the trophies to prove it. Years ago, I hired her for a position at my company. She was brilliant, sharp, focused, precise, but I always had the sense she was bored. She needed more than just a job. One day, she'd stopped by to discuss some community event, and since I was tied up in a meeting, one of my employees, Sean, had kept her company. By the time I got out of that meeting, I'd lost an employee and inadvertently played matchmaker. Turns out they hit it off. June moved into a cozy little apartment not long after, and eventually she retired comfortably, thanks to a smart property sale that set her up in a beautiful retirement community. Honestly, I was glad for her. And me? I got to keep the house. A 2-story, 4,400 square foot home with a finished basement, a place we bought when the girls were just toddlers. Every inch of that house held a memory. We'd poured everything into restoring it for 5 years straight. Blood, sweat, and every spare dollar. Now, it was worth more than double what we'd put in. Lisa loved that house. And I knew when divorce became official, she'd fight tooth and nail to hang on to it. That place was more than a house. It was her status symbol, her comfort zone, her claim to everything we'd built. But part of me had already let it go. At one point, I ended up chatting with Fred, a county rep, about business stuff. We were talking expansion, and I took him out to this high-end steakhouse about 45 minutes away. Treated him to a great meal, made sure his glass stayed full, and once he was good and relaxed, I dropped the bomb. I've been thinking about moving my business operations out to Hover County, I said, casual as anything. They've got a bunch of empty commercial spaces that would suit my needs, and the tax incentives they're offering are pretty attractive. I watched the color drain from his face. Losing 89 jobs? That wouldn't just hurt, it'd make headlines. Especially with our recent plans to hire another 30 people. His expression told me everything. I had leverage. Not for revenge. Just options. Back home, things got interesting. Lisa had taken the car out and called me in a panic a few blocks away. I told her to try starting it again, just calmly like nothing was wrong. It fired up but didn't last long. A few more breakdowns and restarts later she finally made it back. I'd rigged it, of course. Nothing dangerous, just inconvenient. Enough to make a point. I recorded her reaction too. Especially when she snapped at Marissa, telling her to leave the room after she tried to calm her down. The look on Lisa's face? That was something. For a few weeks after that she flipped the switch. She tried being the perfect wife, the doting mom. Like she was playing a part. We went out to dinners as a family and even took a little weekend trip to Disney. The girls were thrilled. Lisa smiled more than I'd seen in months. She was trying. But me? I wasn't fooled. I knew the truth, the kind of truth you can't bury with a vacation or a fake smile. It was already over. Just a matter of time. Truth is, I hated every second of that trip. Lisa tried to pretend like we were some happy family, and the girls didn't know any better. But for me, the only tension that mattered came at night. I'd booked a room with 2 queen beds, just to make it unmistakably clear, we weren't sharing anything, especially not a bed. She still made efforts, tried to inch her way back into intimacy like nothing had happened. One night, I even woke up to find her lying next to me. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just quietly shifted away and told her, no, that line had already been drawn. After that night, Charlie, our oldest, seemed a little more composed. She's doing better, Lisa said one morning, trying to sound reassuring. Your dad and I are going to talk with her again, just to make sure she's okay. Later that week, I found myself outside speaking with an officer who had stopped by for a welfare check after a small outburst Charlie had during school. You've been doing right by your girls, the officer told me, her tone soft but firm. It's hard, I know. But putting them first no matter what, that's what a real man does. If my first husband had been half the man you are, I wouldn't still have such bitter feelings toward him. When we went back inside, Charlie was calm again. She promised the officer she'd be okay and said she was just overwhelmed. She even claimed she loved both of us, me and Lisa, so much that it made everything confusing. Lisa kept pushing for counseling. It's just a trial separation, she'd say. You don't have to make it final. But I'd already filed the papers. We sat down with a judge who walked us through it. This is a 90-day legal separation. At the end, you can renew it, dissolve it, or file for divorce. But for now, it's official. We walked out of the courthouse in silence. The air felt heavy, like a page had just turned. You're really angry, aren't you? Lisa asked once we got to the parking lot. I looked at her for a long second. Yeah, I said. But it's not the same kind of angry. Not like before. Now it's just sadness. A few nights later, after the girls had gone to bed and the rest of our family had left after a small gathering, she confronted me. Were you serious earlier? That woman practically crawled into your lap at dinner. Do you know how humiliating that was for me? I looked her dead in the eye. Not really. But maybe it's close to how I felt when I found out my wife was having an affair. And to top it off, all your friends knew. They helped you lie to me. So if you're feeling embarrassed now, maybe we're finally even. And it wasn't like anything inappropriate even happened. We were at a picnic table, surrounded by kids. The woman in question was being friendly, not forward. But Lisa saw what she wanted to see. As things kept unraveling, I found myself sitting across from Bob, the guy she cheated with. I laid it out for him calmly, clearly. We've decided on a settlement amount. If you try to push this, our attorney will make sure you're charged with every possible offense he can find. That'll make it almost impossible for you to ever work another government job. And forget about getting hired in the private sector in any kind of management role. I paused and added, do yourself a favor, Bob. Treat this as a lesson. Walk away. He didn't argue. And just like that, he disappeared. The local paper didn't even mention him. No send-off, no farewell write-up. Just, gone. Lisa called me afterward. Her tone shifted between anger and what might have been guilt. She asked about splitting custody. Said she'd be working part-time at the office and part-time from home to help with childcare. I told her I wasn't trying to make things harder, I just needed space. Back at work, people noticed. I didn't have to say anything. When the picture of Lisa came down from my desk and got replaced with photos of Kayla and Maddie, Everyone got the message. Most of the team offered quiet condolences. A nod here, a hand on the shoulder there. But not Misty. Misty had always hated Lisa. She used to say Lisa was manipulative, and she'd never forgiven her for that meltdown at the company Christmas party years ago. Lisa had left in tears that night, and Misty never let me forget it. Now it all made sense. After everything that had happened, I finally confronted Lisa's friends. Every single one of them. I didn't hold back. I reminded them of how I nearly blew up their best friend's marriage by telling her husband the truth, about the affair, about the lies, and how Lisa had used their home as a cover. That shook them. After that, none of them wanted to talk about Lisa's situation anymore. It was like she became radioactive, untouchable. And they definitely weren't offering her any more help. Whatever support system she thought she had. It was gone. About a month later there was a knock on my front door. I opened it and saw her, Lisa, on her knees. Literally. Crying, begging me to just talk to her. I stood there for a second, jaw clenched, running through about 20 harsh things I wanted to say. Things that would have cut deep. But in the end, I just opened the door wider and walked back into the living room. A few seconds later, she followed me inside. She looked completely drained, like whatever fight she'd been holding on to had run out of steam. She tried to hold it together, but the second she sat down, her face crumpled. It started as soft tears, then turned into full-on sobbing. And I don't know why, but that sound, it made my blood boil. "Stop it, Lisa," I snapped. "All the crying in the world isn't going to fix this. You didn't come here to cry. So what do you want?" She lifted her head slowly, and to my surprise, there was a steeliness in her eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. "I want one thing," she said. "You. I want you back. I want you to hold me again and tell me things are going to be okay. I want the girls, and I want us wrapped up in quilts on that big couch, laughing at bad movies and passing popcorn around. I want that again." I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. Over time, I started accepting her invitations. To dinner, to help with errands, small things. And to my surprise, my relationship with the girls got stronger too. Especially when school shopping came around. Lisa would take them out, and I'd always make sure Marissa had one of my credit cards just in case. Lisa, being Lisa, would sometimes buy herself an outfit too. But I didn't raise a fuss. It was nothing compared to what she used to spend. She still had one card, a small allowance, and she was learning, slowly, how to live within a budget. Then one day she came to me and asked for a favor. Something about her tone was different. "I've been thinking about my life, Jack," she said, "and how I've been living it." She didn't ask for anything extravagant. It was the kind of favor that showed she was reflecting, that maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to get it. We'd go to events now and then, mostly for networking. She'd hang back, but I'd watch her sometimes from across the room. Guys would approach and she'd turn them down, sometimes pointing me out across the floor. I'll admit, it felt good in the moment. Like maybe I wasn't invisible after all. But between the events, my work, and the emotional toll of it all, I had to pull back. I started attending only one out of every 3. When I told Lisa, she seemed disappointed at first, until I made a point. "How would you feel," I said, "if I dragged you out before sunrise, made you work a full shift, and then expected you to entertain a room full of strangers till midnight, only to get up and do it again the next day?" She understood. She even started joining us for breakfast the next mornings, showing the girls photos on her phone from the night before. Slowly, gently, things started settling. Lisa didn't move back in, but we started having occasional sleepovers. I wasn't rushing anything. But yeah, I had hope. For the first time in a while, I had real hope for the future. Then came that night. We were all sitting down after dinner when June and Harry showed up. The girls were excited. They were headed off to watch a movie in our media room, 32 seats in all. Shauna, always dependable, made sure they brushed teeth and got to bed on time. But Harry pulled me aside. "Jack," he said, his tone heavy. "We need to talk. After the girls are down for the night." I already knew it was bad news. The way June wouldn't even look me in the eye sealed it. It ruined the rest of my evening. The girls didn't notice. They were too caught up in the movie and popcorn. But I couldn't shake that feeling. Later we slipped into the bar, the one in the house I'd designed to look like an old Western saloon. I'd had plenty of hard talks in that room. But this one cut deep. After everything we'd survived, after all the promises and half-healed wounds, this one hit me the hardest. Without a doubt, I knew our marriage was over. The emotions didn't hit right away. I just stood there, still, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart from the outside. I thanked Harry quietly, nodded at June, and went straight to bed. Honestly, I thought I'd be tossing and turning all night, my mind racing like it usually did. But the second my head hit the pillow, I was out. Slept straight through until 6 a.m. I laid there for a while, just staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet settle over me. My thoughts were clear for the first time in a long time. The decision was made. I was done. The divorce was back on. No more back and forth. Monday morning, I call my lawyer and get everything moving again. I didn't know yet when I'd break the news to Lisa, but it was coming. Meanwhile, life kept rolling on. That home spa project I'd built for June as a fun little gesture? It unexpectedly turned into something bigger. She loved the prototype so much she showed it off to her friends. Next thing I knew, I had a parade of women coming by to try it out. Word spread. Eventually, even Harry had enough. He pulled me aside one day, half laughing, half serious. "I'd really like my bathroom back," he said. "Tell them to go get their own." June called me not long after with 7 new orders, serious inquiries ready to pay. I surprised her with my answer. "I appreciate the interest, June," I said, "but I'm not doing it anymore. I just don't have the time, or the energy." It was meant to be a kind gesture. Nothing more. That led to a long talk about materials, labor, margins, but my mind was elsewhere. I was already letting go of the life I used to think I wanted. And then came the final straw. Lisa, or Charlie, as her friends sometimes called her, was served papers right at the dining room table. 2 envelopes. The first was the formal divorce petition. The second? Photos. Intimate ones. Her and the man she swore she was done with. On top of that stack was a note I'd written the night before. "Charlie, I was ready to forgive you. I really believed you'd learned your lesson, and I told myself you'd never betray me again. But I guess I was wrong. They say once a cheater, always a cheater, and now I understand what that really means. The deal I'm offering is generous. You'll come out fine. Just sign the papers and we can both walk away. Let's not drag this out. Let's end it with dignity." Turns out, the man in the pictures? He had a wife. Her name was Barbara Duncan. She showed up one day, just knocked on my office door, introduced herself and said, "I think my husband knows your wife." I nodded slowly. It clicked. "I'm sorry you're in the middle of this," I told her. She gave a tired smile and shook her head. "I don't think this is your fault, and I know it's not mine. They made their choices. 2 people with a history of cheating who probably saw a chance and took it." Then she looked me straight in the eyes. "I need a favor," she said. "If you've got photos, texts, or anything else, I could use it for my own case." I didn't hesitate. "I'll send it your way." I wasn't looking for revenge, but I also wasn't going to protect anyone who didn't deserve it. I signed off my message to Lisa with one last parting shot. "And just so you know, once that ink is dry, I'll be moving on. The girls deserve a positive female role model in their lives. So go ahead, wreck another marriage or 2. Just make sure you send those women my way afterward. Maybe I can help them rebuild. Maybe they'll start a support group or something. Goodbye, Charlie." I think the anger in my voice scared her. She backed into the corner, wide-eyed and dead quiet. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even close it. I just walked out. As for the girls, yeah, they were upset. I tried to protect them, but there's only so much you can shield them from. They felt the shift even if they didn't fully understand it. And me? Well, it's been nearly a year. And I think I've earned a little fun. Because I'm tired of flying solo, if you catch my drift. I knew Barbara was flying out to France the next morning. Before she left, I said something that made her pause. "Try to keep it together over there, Barb. Who knows? Maybe you'll fall for some charming French guy, or at least enjoy a little time for yourself." She let out a long sigh. "Good thing I talked to Brenda before packing." "I'm not wearing a thong," she said, raising an eyebrow, "but I'm also not wearing anything under this dress. Just so you know, not that it's any of your business." I smiled but didn't bite. She continued, a little softer now. "I'm still wrapping my head around being single again." Apparently, Brenda had already found herself a new accountant, which only made Barbara feel more unanchored. She was trying to embrace freedom, but she was still figuring out what it meant to be alone. Meanwhile, Shauna had a different kind of adventure in mind. "You should come with us," she said, grinning like she already knew I would. "We're planning a camping trip." It wasn't just her and me, though. Darcy would bring 2 friends, Marissa would bring 2, and Star the same, 9 girls total, all between 10 and 16. A lot of noise, a lot of energy, and maybe more than I could handle. I raised an eyebrow. Managing 9 teenage girls in the woods? That sounds like a full-time job. Shauna just laughed. "I doubt there's anything you can't handle. Besides, they'll listen to you. You'll have them moving like a well-oiled machine." Then Marissa chimed in with that sweet, manipulative daughter charm. "Come on, Daddy. We'll need someone to carry the heavy stuff and cook for us. You don't expect us to do everything, do you? How do you say no to that? Later that day, I did something impulsive, something that had been simmering for a while. Shauna asked why. Why'd you do that? She asked, eyes wide but not angry. I looked at her and smiled. Because I've wanted to for a long time. And honestly, it was even better than I imagined. I did it partly to surprise you, and partly because I needed to know if it felt as right as I thought it would. She didn't answer with words, just grabbed me and kissed me again. When we pulled apart, I left a small mark on her neck. She looked shocked for a second, but then the girls came running out, giggling and teasing, pulling her inside while I went to fire up the grill. We were all just trying to enjoy what was left of the afternoon. I offered to help put sunscreen on her back. It was just something natural, something kind. Her skin was soft and warm, the sun starting to set behind us. She tossed her hair back and smiled. Do the rest, she teased. I laughed and looked over at the 9 girls lounging nearby. You have no idea how much I want to, I said under my breath, but we've got an audience. She smirked, sat up and adjusted her top, deciding to finish the job herself. But I'll be honest, it was almost as nerve-wracking watching her do it as it would have been to do it myself. Eventually, I excused myself to cool off. Took a dip in the pool. The day had been long and I needed a moment to reset. That night, I was about ready to collapse when she slipped under the covers, wearing only a pair of soft white cottons and nothing else. She looked over her shoulder at me, lifted the blanket and said, "You coming?" I didn't hesitate. Slipped in beside her, still in my boxers. She gave me a quick kiss, then turned over, pulling my arm around her. She nestled in close, warm and familiar, and within minutes she was asleep. It took me a little longer. Not because I wasn't tired, but because it was hard to ignore just how close she was, and how much it still stirred in me. Still, I eventually drifted off, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. I woke up the next morning to the sound of giggling. The soft kind that filters through the air like birdsong. I was still spooned up behind Shauna, and she was stretching slowly, arching her back into me. Feels like you've been dreaming, she murmured with a smirk. A lot more recently than I have. Before I could answer, we heard laughter again, not hers this time but the girls. They're just having fun, she said, sitting up and pulling the sheet over herself. If they get too close again though, they're all yours. She slipped out to the aft deck, and I watched as her silhouette disappeared into the early light. Moments later, I heard loud cheers echoing from across the lake. She came back in grinning, adjusting her top. Looks like we've got competition, she laughed. I just smiled quietly. Some things don't need words. Later that afternoon, we anchored in a quiet cove. That's when I revealed the boat's best feature, something I'd kept hidden until just the right moment. A sliding board that launched you right out into the water. A small pump kept it wet so you'd glide fast and free. Once the girls figured it out, it was chaos. They paired off, taking turns, screaming in delight as they shot off the end and soared briefly through the air before crashing into the lake. Watching them was a bittersweet kind of happiness. So much had changed. But this was good. Shauna lay beside me in one of the chairs as we dried off in the sun. Charlie taught me a lot, she said softly. About how to turn pain into something that doesn't eat you alive. I nodded. I understood that more than I ever wanted to. As the day wound down, dinner came off the grill. Thankfully, my girls had learned how to work a barbecue, something most of the others clearly hadn't mastered. Shauna and I handled cleanup while the girls gathered around a fire pit. One of Marissa's friends pulled out a guitar and started playing. They sang, awkward off-key in parts but full of joy. Sitting in the dark with the lake still and no one to judge, it felt good. Later, when we were all piled back into the pontoon heading in, the girls started talking about their combined birthday plan. A few tears were shed, good tears, happy ones, but then I noticed Shauna's face change. That teary shimmer turned into a knowing grin. She grabbed her phone, texted someone quickly, then turned to me. "Pull over," she said, eyes gleaming. Marissa, who was driving the Jeep behind us, pulled over so fast I thought we were going to lose a tire. Shauna practically leapt out of the truck, raced around to my door, and yanked it open before I could even unbuckle myself. And then, right there on the shoulder, under a big open sky, she kissed me. Not just a kiss. The kiss. The kind that makes you forget every other one that came before. The girls exploded in cheers, dancing and shouting like they'd won a championship. Marissa, still holding up her phone, showed me the message. Operation a success. Well done, troops. Shauna couldn't stop grinning. That was their plan all along, she said. They wanted to make sure I sealed the deal. Some time later we moved into a new place. It was tucked into a quiet neighborhood with a backyard big enough for bonfires, and a pool and hot tub we almost wore out that first year. Custody never became a battle. The girls lived within walking distance of both homes, but they stayed with us most of the time, especially once their younger sisters were born. By then they were nearly grown themselves. Charlie remarried. Twice. The first one didn't last. Ended after 2 years when he was caught cheating. And me? I'd finally found what I didn't even know I was missing. A quiet life. A full house. Laughter echoing through the halls. And the kind of love that doesn't make you guess. Not perfect, but honest. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough.